We're here today in New York City at Carpenters Workshop Gallery's 5th Avenue location, bringing you a preview of our latest exhibition, Primal Elements. Primal Elements is a group show that highlights the influence of nature in our artists' work. Now more than ever, we're striving to reconnect with nature and in turn ourselves and each other. This show highlights the telluric to the celestial, the biomorphic to the animalistic, in an effort to incite our minds, grow our spirits, and forge a deeper connection with the world around us. Let me give you a tour. Show opens with the Telluric Forest, this immersive installation by Nacho Carbonell. Nacho's work is from another planet. It really is something that's completely unearthly. And when you look at each piece, it has its own character, like its own species. The mesh netting has been pulled and extracted and extrapolated, creating this beautiful web where the light comes through, casting glow and shadows that really play with the space. As you walk through, you'll see some other unearthly species. This one's called the alien cocoon, also playing with this idea of the sedimentary gradients. You have the bronze yellow mesh cocoon, has a beautiful acid patina finish. Growing glass, just cast Murano glass growing out of this concrete base. This is very strong. What I like to highlight with Nacho's work is that each one is exploring the same materiality, but experimenting with the technique and application. He's always working with very industrial materials, the welded steel, the concrete, the chicken wire and mesh netting, layers and layers of pigment, of sand, of glass, go into the making of each piece. But each one has their own way of coming to life, its own materialization. My personal favorite, which is a complete masterpiece, very strong work from Nacho, is this piece, the combi cocoon. You see that you have this welded steel bench that has this branch-like structure growing into a tree from it. The balance, and I think the proportions are quite elegant. Also in the exhibition is an installation by Drift, one of the largest of the Fragile Future series. Fragile Future is an ongoing series, an exploration of the relationship between nature and technology. You'll notice with each of these suspended light sculptures, there are hundreds of illuminated dandelions. And yes, they're real dandelions. The structure is a conductive phosphorus bronze. There's this delicate balance of almost the preservation of something that's so ethereal and so whimsical, so fleeting. Through this work, the artists are not only preserving nature and this ephemeral feeling, but they're also immortalizing it as well. I'm going to take you upstairs where the exhibition continues. One of the highlights of the exhibition is this work by Stuart Haygarth. It's called Comet. It's a light sculpture comprised of 30,000 acrylic ice cubes. Each ice cube is made of a compressed plastic water bottle that he reclaims and upcycles. Environmental issues and sustainability are something that's very meaningful to Stuart and found fluidly throughout his work. Stuart likes to reference taking these mundane materials and then creating something grand out of them. So through critical mass and the concept of collecting, you get this greater image. And then as such, it's this celestial piece that's just absolutely gorgeous. Another work in the show that I want to highlight is this work by Ingrid Donat. It's called the Comet Galusha. She's really taken this idea of the Galusha, which in French means stingray, and replicated that motif of that animal-like skin and texture to the piece. Every element has been carved by her hands into wax and then lost wax cast into bronze. So it's a very noble material, a very traditional technique, but has this sort of timelessness and contemporary sensibility to it. The pulls here as well, there's something very womb-like and feminine about it. So even though it's a very strong and masculine material, the motif of the galusha, this femininity of the womb, all these little touches really warm the piece and make it quite approachable. Another piece that works with an aquatic reference, you could say, is the Campana brothers, the Piorruku chair. So Campana brothers are known for working with material and resources that come from their native Brazil. This piece is an excellent example of just that. Piorruku is one of the largest freshwater fish in the world. And here you can see that the skin, these pelts, just how large that fish is. It's a beautiful work. It has a very amoebic form, and it's also quite playful. It's really inviting you in. When you sit in it, you realize just how comfortable the piece is, which comfort is everything when we're talking about seating. The next piece that I think is a wonderful work to highlight is the Charles Trevelyan Circumspect. Trevelyan's work, there's this inherent quality to it that is very organic, that does have this kind of spindrily-like feeling or structure to it. So you have these, 3 legs that are so delicately balancing this beautiful floor lamp. And it's a work to me that is just so elegant in its proportions and its scale. It's a beautiful floor lamp, and it's an incredible sculpture. Another theme that we touched on in the show is looking back to the history in art of the cave paintings of Lascaux, and there's 2 works that really show this an example. One is the Roger Herman ceramic here, and the other is the Atelier van Lieshout deer lamp. Both incorporate these very iconographic, animalistic references that are run pretty fluid throughout art history, and you can see that in both forms. We have a number of pieces in the exhibition from Stephen Haulenbeek, a Chicago-based sculptor and artist, from his series, The Ice Cast Bronze. And how he creates these vessels and these other objects is he quite literally takes blocks of ice and pours hot wax into them. So you get these elements that it's half controlled, and then the other half is left by chance. And there's so much movement in these works. It's really about capturing that movement and capturing the physics of those transitions. Maarten Baas, one of the artists that we've worked very closely with for a number of years, came out a few years ago with this series called the Carava Pass. With Carava Pass, he was really thinking about this idea, a carapace referencing this decorative armor, the outer shell of a turtle or beetle that you see throughout nature. And he's kind of reinventing it in his own way. You have here this bronze cabinet with this patchwork bronze element, this detailing here with the tack welding that's typically concealed but is becoming part of the narrative. And like any decorative armor of these animals in nature, it's always holding something really sweet and precious within. When you open up the work, it's much more delicate, much more dainty, and you notice that there's these little bronze sculptures that become the fittings. There's the bronze hardware that's all lost wax cast. So the detail of this work, it's a sculpture within a sculpture within a sculpture, and it can hold whatever the precious element that you want within. The last artist I'm going to focus on today is Vincenzo De Santis. A few years ago, he created this series called En plein air. En plein air quite literally means out in the open air, and it's referencing the point and period in art history in the late 1800s when the Impressionists were leaving their studios and they were going out into nature and into the countryside to be inspired and to work. And here he's taking that concept and putting it into a more, I would say, conceptual way. He's translating this much more conceptually, working with material that's extremely rare, like this jasperite stone, and then marrying it with this very brutalist, reclaimed fiberglass and brass. So you see lots of elements of brass, of fiberglass, with this very precious stone. Some of the pieces have Murano glass, like this dining table. The legs of this table have this branch-like structure, again, so it's really showing some inspiration and some reference to nature. You see it again in the coffee tables and these side tables, these precious little jewels. And I think that it's one of his strongest series, and he continues to explore these ideas of how he works with material and how he relates that to the way we live. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this preview of Primal Elements. The exhibition runs through December 2020, and I hope you can come see it in person. It's a beautiful show. See you soon.